Guys, I swear, that bear I bought for French February is turning me more French. Every time I make a video about the French aircraft, I just get more and more French. Oh, man. Hey guys, it's middle making time. Well, you guys said in chat that you want to see me more French, and we're going now. I guess all I need now is a stripy shirt and a moustache, right? It's a good thing French month isn't over, isn't it? Today we're obviously looking at Hella's Bréguet 693 in 1/72 scale. This is again part of their new Z series, so this is essentially Hella's version of vintage classics. This aircraft is one I actually ordered from Hella directly. I ordered a few things from them. I ordered the puzzle of the Fuga Magister, like the really gorgeous box art that I have on the new 148 scale kit, which is Reboxed Kinetic. And then I ordered this kit, but then I got a free calendar as well, which is on all over there. And yeah, I really was impressed. I ordered it on Monday, got it on like the Thursday. Amazing speed for the delivery. Honestly, Hella, props. That's some speedy service right there. I'd never actually built this kit before, so unlike say the MS406 that we built in a previous video, this one is completely new for me. So I can't even compare this to previous experiences. As usual, we're going to go through the history of the aircraft in real life, we'll go through the aircraft in its various appearances in gaming, and we'll also have a gander at the history of the kits. Don't worry, if you do not think you have the time to go through all of this today, there are timestamps on this video, so if you want to watch part of it now, part of it later, you can do so. There'll also be a supporting video released later in the week. Without further ado, I guess it's time to get into the history of the Bréguet 693. I think it's important to set sort of the tone for this aircraft. So we've talked a couple of times about French air doctrine and how really part of the reason why France lost the Ball of France and led to the fall of France is not because they had just outdated aircraft, although that was obviously a large part of it, but also because they used techniques to fight back against the Germans or offences against the Germans that were just completely outdated for the time. And the Bréguet 693 certainly falls victim to that, much like the Loire Newport 411 did that we looked at earlier. Now, the 693 came from a requirement for a heavy fighter. Originally this was to be a 3-seat fighter, but it lost that to Potez, which was another French company who did the Potez 630 and 631 series. Oh my god, I definitely need to do the kit on that because it's such a gorgeous aircraft and it's so good in War Thunder. Anyway, getting sidetracked. Ultimately, that meant that this aircraft wasn't really viable. It also shared the same engine as the Potez competitor, so you know what it's like when two aircraft go head to head and one comes out the victor. If they share the same power plant, you know that the winner's going to get precedence, right? So Bréguet continued with development, and instead of looking at a 3-seat sort of heavy interceptor fighter, they instead looked at a ground strike aircraft. Essentially, from what I've read, it's a CAS aircraft. It's just not called accessible because that wasn't really a thing as much now. It's more of a strike ground attack aircraft, you know? The original engines were Hispanis, and these were replaced with gnome-grown 4M67 engines, and it gave a much better performance. This aircraft, with all its amendments made, was now known as the 691. The most important and drastic change made to the aircraft other than the power plant was the removal of the observation area for sort of a third crew member, and this was changed into a bomb bay. Now, the interesting thing for this is, and you'll see it on a lot of French, particularly like light strike and bomber aircraft, is that they had glass underneath where the bomb bay is, so it looks really spectacular, particularly if you see it in gaming, like when it just opens up the glass and the bombs fall through. It's really odd. Like, I think particularly looking at sort of more traditional bomb bays, it's a really spectacular design. Following on from the 691 was the 693. This was just sort of a natural development. This had amendments made to the engine cowlings, it had changes to the exhausts of the aircraft and flaps that were covering the engine exhaust and fire covers, and it basically meant that the aircraft overall did go a bit faster, and there were some amendments to the tail wheel as well. I did read somewhere, I think it's a mistranslation that was entirely removed. I think it was just an amendment, because every variant from the 691 to the 695, which we'll talk about in a moment, has had the same sort of wheel design that we'll see on this model kit. So I'm not entirely sure, but if someone knows, let me know in the comments below. Now, I've already mentioned the 695, and this was another development of the 693. This was with American engines because, cannons were becoming a bit of a problem in mainland Europe at this time, and so it led to using Pratt & Whitney Wasp engines, twin Wasps, should I say. This version with the new engines did fly in 1940, but it's sort of too soon to the invasion of France to really have any significance. I must say, just looking at the aircraft so far, it's definitely one of the best looking ground striking aircraft. If you want to think of it as, say, the Potez was the Bf-110 of France, this is probably equivalent to, say, an Me-210, a Blenheim, a Row 58, that sort of aircraft, and I definitely think this is the cutest one out of all of them. It's very handsome. Just a shame that its performance didn't live up to what it needed to, and an uprated version, which would have been the Br.693, was also developed, and in fact, the prototype for that, the Br.697, did fly prior to the invasion of France. Now, this still had no Rome engines, but these were the 14N48, and it gave it essentially a 50% boost in power. Oh my god. Now, from various things I've read about this, its performance was insane. It literally made it a proper heavy fighter. Not only that, but it could keep up with a Bf-109 in a climb. That is insane for this time period, particularly when you think about the British, Polish and Italians had at this time. That's actually pretty impressive. Sadly though, the Br.700 would never get a chance to see if it could turn the tide of war. With the Br.697 flying shortly before the invasion, it was too late, much like the Br.695, to have any impact on the war. It's interesting to think that the Br.700 could have given Bf-109s a run for their money and could have changed the stance of France in the air war. Had this aircraft been developed faster and given more priority, it really could have been something. Unfortunately, it would be relegated to the history books. The Br.693 didn't have a good performance. In fact, its loss ratio was approximately 50%. Part of the reason for this is the French air doctrine, as I keep harping back to, and there's a reason I'm doing it. These aircraft would take off in, a squadron, so, I don't know, 10, 15, however many. One report was 18 aircraft. These aircraft would fly low and strike their target, but had no bomb sight, so were not particularly accurate, and bear in mind this is quite early into this style of bombing, so fast, low-flying bombers, accuracy was not their forte, training was a bit behind them, and it meant that even if there were going to be losses, those losses might not even result in significant damage to the enemy. What the French hadn't really thought of is the development of anti-aircraft, and that was part of the downfall of this. When striking low against tanks and columns of enemy infantry, they neglected to think about the fact that it wasn't just small arms fire anymore. There were reports of that flight of 18 was reduced down to a flight of 8. Those Bf-109s we were mentioning, they were a problem. And once aircraft had completed their bombing run or, had been damaged by that ground fire, they could be mopped up by Bf-109s swooping down from above. This was a really dangerous time for Bréguet pilots, and the Bréguet wouldn't last the fall of France. Following the French surrender to the Germans and the establishment of Vichy France, the remaining Bréguet 693s were actually handed over to Germans and used for a while as sort of training aircraft, but ultimately relegated to the scrapyard, with their engines being given to Henschel HS-129 ground strike aircraft. A sad end for what was truly a stunning aircraft. That's pretty much it for this aircraft's history. It doesn't have anything particularly long, and obviously if you want to, you can look into specific battles it fought in. I've given you a relatively high-level overview of what happened, and I guess to give it the overall view, it had about a 50% loss of all Bréguet 693s in service during the Battle of France. Not as bad as some aircraft. I mean, at that point, it's not really a victory. It's just less of a defeat. Now, the aircraft did secure some exports, but these never really happened either. One of those was Belgium, which I feel like is a cliche at this point. It's like, hey, did you build an aircraft in World War II? Oh my god, if Belgium will buy that, they'll either buy the license and not build it. I am, of course, speaking relatively sarcastically there. Belgium didn't have the chance to build a lot of their aircraft because, invasion happened, but, Belgium was potentially a customer for this. Surprisingly, Sweden was also interested in this aircraft and actually placed an order that was cancelled following the invasion of France. They'd placed an order for a reconnaissance aircraft, which anyone who knows Swedish aviation, this is quite interesting because Sweden would eventually end up developing their own in the form of the B-18. But yeah, I guess that's it for the history of this aircraft. It's quite concise, there wasn't a lot to it. It didn't really have any life. It, survived a little bit in Vichy France, but ultimately didn't survive. Guess now what we need to do is have a look at the aircraft in gaming. Now, in gaming, this aircraft is sort of like the Loire Newport that we've looked at before, but sort of the flip side of it. Instead of being only available in Flight Simulator, this aircraft is only available in IL-2 1946 and War Thunder. And yeah, it's probably no surprise that this aircraft is in IL-2 1946 because that game seems to have almost every super aircraft under the sun. I will clarify before we go on to IL-2 1946 that I did find some screenshots of this in Combat Flight Simulator 2, which potentially may have been brought over to CFS 3, and I've seen some articles referencing it for FS 2002, which makes sense because these things would work and some aircraft would then get ported to 2004, maybe FSX, but I couldn't find any complete downloads or complete change to show that definitely happened, so I'm not entirely sure. It was just sort of a string of forums, but if you happen to see one, let us know, leave it in the comments below and we can preserve a bit of history. IL-2 1946 is a stalwart of this section of these videos. It tends to have the aircraft that we have in question, and occasionally has been left out to allow other games to shine through. This is not one such occasion, because the Br.693 does not really feature in many video games, and to be honest, IL-2 1946 is probably the most accurate representation of the aircraft in gaming. Now, it doesn't look necessarily the best, as we've mentioned numerous times. I think this model is particularly old in comparison to some others, but to be honest, if you want a really nice sort of single player experience where you can just take off and strike against ground targets, this one's probably for you. Because our other example that we're looking at now is War Thunder. War Thunder I talked about many times, and when they added the French tree to this game along with the Italian tree, it changed how I approach this game because I absolutely adore French and Italian aviation. The Br.693 is an aircraft that I wasn't super familiar with, but I absolutely love in this game. In fact, you'll not be surprised to hear that I've made a little cinematic of this aircraft, because I just wanted to show what this aircraft was capable of against aircraft that were perhaps not as strong as the Br.499. That video will be out on Thursday though, so you'll have to wait for that one. Honestly, that was it. That's all I could find for the aircraft in gaming. So if you find something else, let me know, because I would be fascinated to see what other games this is featured in. I guess there were probably French language games, potentially, that this could have featured in, but this was kind of not a super important player in the Battle of France compared to things like the MS-46, D-520, even the Protest 630, to be honest. So yeah, let us know in the comments below, but we need to move on from the history and gaming to the Kitstory. Ah yes, the Kitstory, the history of the model kit. Now this model doesn't have many other examples, and I'll start by saying that really in 1/72nd, you've either got this one or Special Hobby or Azure, and Special Hobby and Azure, they're more limited run, they're not always as easy to put together as say a Hell kit, so for a neo modeler, this is probably your only option. And there is also Friendly Miniatures, who did a 1/48 scale version. That kit does look really good, but again, short run, so if you can build many short run kits, and as one interview said, not in your stash, actually built, then maybe you'll be okay with it, but otherwise I'd probably suggest looking at this version, the Hella kit. Now this kit was released originally in 1967, featuring this gorgeous box art of some Bréguets flying around and obviously suffering from anti-aircraft fire. The sky is burning orange, and I adore this box art. I mean, to be fair, most Hella and Airfix vintage box art I think is stunning. Alongside it, Hella released a Buzzco version was released, which was, the American audience version of the Hella kit. It looks almost the same, it just has Buzzco written across it and then a smaller artback. The box art wouldn't change very much for the releases during the course of sort of the 1960s all the way up until 1979. This box art was still mostly the same, just with sort of the black bar across it that we all become familiar with Hella boxings that we see around at model shows. It would be with the 1982 release that we would see the first proper change to this, with the What I really don't like artwork where it's got sort of the model built on a plain background. I hate these. I hate these for the fashion. I'm really sorry for those who love this artwork, but I can't stand it. I just love the actual, you know, combat that you see on boxes now. But hello, that was mostly it. It would be Smer or Smir, I don't know, however you say the Czech company's name, who released the aircraft during the course of 1986 and 2009. This did have its own box art and it looked quite nice. Smir is one of those companies that I think a lot of people became familiar with for just releasing older Hell toolings. I know for me that's how I became familiar with the brand in the UK, and for others that's probably the case as well. But in 2017, Hell came back with this kit with a vengeance. As part of their updated line of Musée kits, this had enhanced decals, giving you more options inside the box, with colour instruction sheets for the actual painting and markings of the aircraft, and it had the original instructions included, which I'm not super fond of. An update would be nice, but you know, the kit is amazing. Oh, and it comes in the new sort of box, which, you know, has the open top, so you can still store all your parts in it as you're building them, rather than having one that's just got a solid open top. I think you guys know what I mean, and like, so many people are fond of Hella's decision to do that, and I think it's great. And well, that's the release that we see today. Hella is still releasing this kit. As I said, I bought mine from Hella directly. I mean, you can as well. Well, we're through all the pre-kit stuff now, so if you want to take a second, give this video a like, make sure to click that subscribe button, and we'll get into the unboxing of this gorgeous French fighter. So, Hella's Bréguet 693. Look at the box art. Oh, it looks so pretty. Oh, I really love this. And I love that the box is this style so that you can easily use it for storage during, you know, the making of a model kit. So if you knock it off a table or a desk, it's not all going to go everywhere. But yeah, let's have a look what's inside this beautiful little box. The instructions are the original instructions from the first release of the kit, and they're interesting looking, aren't they? Not necessarily the easiest to understand, but on the flip side, we do have these gorgeous colour renditions of the Bréguet 693 once it's complete for you to follow when applying the new and improved decals. Like with the MS406, this features a number of additions. So you've got the original ones in the top left that you can see, and then 2 other markings included. So you can even do this in the Armée de l'Air for Vichy, France, so after the capitulation of France. The clip arts seem okay, but they have a, you can sort of see like a, it's not really, because I did clean them off a bit afterwards, but they just seem to have a bit of a sheen to them that's unusual, but they do seem relatively clear, and so I'd probably give these maybe a 7 out of 10. Now, you can see this route here for the kit, and it's not complex, is it? Let's be honest. There's no real interior for this kit either, and unless you're planning on scratch building it, which I certainly was not planning on doing, you just have to accept the detail is minimal, and that carries over to the actual main components itself. This is an early Hella kit, so don't expect anything miraculous. And unlike the MS406, I don't find the texture quite as stunning on this kit. It's quite basic and planned, but it's also one of the very few examples of his aircraft in sort of 1/72 at an affordable price point. So it is what it is. Okay, so this was actually my second Musée kit, and I think there is one key issue with this compared to other ones that we'll go into before I go into building this kit, because it's something that actually did impact me. The instructions. The instructions for this kit are the original instruction, and it's very few parts. It's basically just throw it together. And I feel like Hella have missed the ball a little bit with this, and it just seems odd to me that Hella haven't updated these kits, and then at least giving you the option of if you want to use the original instructions that came with it, or you could use, you know, an updated version. I mean, hell, to be honest, you could just pick the updated version online. It would have almost no cost after production, just having it stored on your website. I think that would be really good, particularly for those who might not have the skills to read those sort of instructions, because they can be quite busy, and I guess for people who may not sort of read things the same way, it probably is quite overwhelming. I mean, I got confused on a couple of parts, and I view myself as someone who's quite good at reading these sort of instructions. So, you know, someone who's new to the hobby I find this quite scary. And yes, I know we all did it as children, but we're not used to reading these instructions now. You might start off with one of Hala's fighters that has really clear instructions, then go on to this and go, excuse me? You want me to do what? I guess the best way to show you this is just to go into the construction. So let's go into it and you can see what happens. Construction of this kit started like I do all my construction with the wings, and they are really easy. And this is only my third sort of larger than a single seat fighter kit that I'm doing. I've done one which was the Blenheim, the finished Blenheim I did, and another one that's not yet been released as a video. Now the wings go together really easily, and I didn't have any struggle with the fit of the aircraft. The wings also slot into the aircraft and there's not really many gaps. The fillet on the wing section to fuselage is a lot less than I would have expected, particularly for an older kit. We can see that I've got both parts of that together and the aircraft's really starting to take shape. Now, because there's not really much in the way of a cockpit in this kit, I'm sticking everything together. There's a lot of glass on this kit though, because it is a French fighter, so of course there's windows absolutely everywhere. And I did forget to stick some of these in, which should have already been in place, and I'm going to have to go back and correct that later. But luckily it's not too late. The tail section is really easy to do. It's just one long straight piece and then the two sort of vertical fins that attach to it. They really simply slot onto the back end of the aircraft as well, and it means you get this really gorgeous profile already. The engine nacelles are quite easy to put together, consisting of 4 parts, the front part and the back part. The formation of them is good for aligning them with the actual fuselage, because there's that sort of air intake bit underneath, which I think is for cooling, if I remember correctly. I'm not entirely sure, but that basically is really easy to align with the wheel assembly and makes this a really easy part of the aircraft to assemble and put together. The aircraft itself otherwise is relatively straightforward, but like I mentioned, I forgot to do some of the glass parts. You can see that I've basically taken the aircraft apart, which is not something you really want to do, but in this instance it was a necessary evil. I needed to make sure that I could get all the glass bits in and the top. There's those little 4 windows on the sides of the aircraft that give it a really distinctive look, and you can just visualize the sort of rear gunner being able to see out the back of the side of it, and I just think it's important to make sure I get them in. And I probably could have just filled it in with some of my famous gluing glaze that I use, but on this occasion I thought, you know, I'm gonna actually just use everything that comes in the kit. This was sort of the start of me screwing this kit up, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not happy with how my kit ended up looking. The paint job isn't too bad, it's more so the actual construction. You can see I'm slitting in the front gun there. They're just slotting into place in front of the cockpit. There we go. But you can see there's sort of lots of gaps on the top of it. There's areas around glass that have got gaps, and to be honest, I gave up at a certain point. I did try and smooth it all out, but I just kept finding that the more I tried to smooth it, I was destroying the profile a bit. And to be honest, I need to get better tools for sanding. I need to get some sanding sticks rather than just sanding paper. I need to get some different level grits to make sure I'm doing it properly, because I ultimately damaged my kit as a result of this, and it's my fault. It is entirely my fault. It's, you know, there's no one else to blame when you're doing the construction other than yourself, really, is there? Now, once we'd got the engine nacelles plopped on, we did put the propellers in, which you just put them in the front and then make them in the back as well, so that they can still spin relatively freely. And I'll be honest, that's one of the better designed elements of this kit. And once I'd done that, I decided to stick the wheels in. The wheels assemble really nicely, however, mine got knocked off by my cat about 3 times, 4 times, and ended up having to be shortened in order to make sure that the landing gear was even with each other, because they got knocked out so many times. And that's again my own fault. It's not a fault of the kit, but it's just something to bear in mind that this is way more fragile than some other kits. Once we went on to airbrushing, I used some Mascol that I had in my drawer that I didn't know I had anymore, and just thought, screw it, I'm just going to try Mascol. I've not really tried it before, and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. And well, you'll have to see when I peel it off how it went. I went on with my set of Army de l'Air colours from Life Colour, which I've used on pretty much all of the World War II French aircraft that I've done during the course of this month. And after I'd got the darker grey section gone, I put on the green. You can see the green's probably slightly overwatered, but it's fine, it's not too thin, and it goes on really nicely. I did find the grey and the green went on really nicely. The brown I had a bit more difficulty with. I just think I got the wrong mix with it, because another aircraft that I was spraying at the same time, I didn't have any issue with, so, you know, it's entirely user error. I absolutely adore these paints. I think they go on really nicely and they seem so accurate. My markings on this one, I'm not sure on. I think I went oversized with the camo, and that tends to be an issue I've had on a couple of the bigger aircraft I've done for France, where they have more intricate designs, but then I've seen some that have less intricate designs, so I'm not really sure. So we're just gonna go with it, and I think I get an okay looking product at the end of it. Not the best, and I definitely think I should have gone over and done some scribing and get some heavier weathering in, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, you know? You just have to accept what you get at some stage. Here we go with the brown then. I'm initially just lining out where I'm going, and this is because I've been doing another aircraft at the same time that was much lower pressure usage, because it has a very different style camo, and that's the aircraft we're going to see at the end of French month that I'm really excited for you guys to see. But yeah, I got it off screen quite a lot as well, because, you know, still learning this, but I don't think it looks too bad. It's definitely better than some of my previous efforts are, definitely a lot less splashy and splotchy. I am forgetting at times to do a dry blast of air at the end with no paint to make sure all the paint's gone, so you don't get any splotching afterwards. And again, that's something I'm just learning to do. You can see my controller's definitely better, and I've definitely got that new nozzle. I did, again, make some errors with the brown here, and I went way too much with the brown and thought, that looks absolutely awful. I'm gonna have to go back over it with grey. Now, I don't think I filmed all of me doing the grey, because I went on with a couple of layers, and it doesn't look perfect. On the end result, I think I just gave up, because I was just like, no, we're just gonna leave it, we'll go with it, we'll just see what it looks like. I'm not happy with it. Again, alongside screwing up on the construction, I screwed up on the paint on this, and I'm really sad because I really love this aircraft. I think it is one of the most beautiful aircraft designed in the 1930s, and I'm really disappointed in my capability on this aircraft. So I'm gonna have to do one of these again at some point. Maybe I'll try the Special Hoppy or Azure version, because, you know, they probably are more detailed, they're a lot newer, and given the Loire Newport 411 I built from Azure, I'm kind of excited to see what they look like. But, you know, we'll have to see whether or not you guys want me to try one of these and not screw it up as much. You can see the grey there is done, and it does have some transparency through to the brown below. I just ended up leaving it. I thought it looked okay, and it's only now that I sort of look at it afterwards, I'm like, huh, that's not great, is it? However, the other side of it, the other wing, I don't think looks too bad, and I think overall the aircraft does look fine. It's not the best. It's never going to be the best, but it's not horrendous, and I'll settle for that sometimes, you know? And overall, I did enjoy it, and it did give me some challenges, and it let me try Mascol, and I've always been too scared to do Mascol and airbrushing, and I actually did it this time. The side decals go on here with a small roundel and a squadron marking. I did follow one of the ones from out of the actual box itself, and I think I got all the positioning fine in the end. Sometimes it's quite hard to guess whether or not you have got everything absolutely perfect, and I think this is probably slightly lower than it should have been. Looking at some other people's versions, they're a lot higher up and they're almost touching at the top, but I did what I could. The rear tail fins have the iconic French tricolor on the back, and they look absolutely stunning. You do get given a blank version, and you can put the text on yourself, or you get given these ones that are already complete. It's assumedly so you could do whatever versions you want to. You do then have to put the number on afterwards, so mine are number 7, and I do end up losing one of the 7s on mine, which is, again, my own fault. I basically just knocked one with my hand without even realising, and when I tried to find it, it all scrunched up, and I tried to salvage it with water, but I couldn't. Once we got the decals on then, it was time to take off the mascot, and I found this so satisfying. Just peeling it off, and I got a really nice line around it. Cleanup on this is really actually not that bad. I was really surprised. I have now got a different version. I think it's Vallejo, it's putty, just because it was cheaper, and I'm really trying to watch my finances because stuff's happened in my life. So yeah, I've gone over to that one instead because my mascot was sort of too old and it was really hard to use. But I literally had not used it for years and forgotten about it, so I'm glad that it works. I'm glad that I've used it on a model that I'd already screwed up, so that it didn't really matter too much if I did it wrong, because I could have just abandoned this project. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. It really worked nicely. It's a really easy way to, you know, do the entire model with complete immunity, I guess, so that you can do the camouflage uninterrupted, whereas before I've always had to sort of hand paint around cockpit sections, so I've had to fill them up with blue tack and then normally do some of the cockpit again and sometimes lose some decals. So yeah, not too shabby, but I did try and do some weathering afterwards, but yeah, I'm not super satisfied with this kit. Well, that was less than easy, wasn't it, guys? Yeah, okay, I dropped the ball on this, I guess. This isn't my best work. I feel legitimately kind of bad. It doesn't look as good as it should do. Kind of upset about it. I tried new techniques though, and that's really fun, and I think I did some bits really well, just other bits were really poor. I definitely messed up some of the clear barbs as well, but there's not a lot I can do about that now, and maybe one day I'll learn how to clean clear parts really well, but right now I can't. At least this time I actually remembered to mask the clear bars, whereas on another model kit that we'll see in a future episode, I just forgot that there were clear bars and just sprayed right over them. So yeah, at least I didn't do that. Ultimately, you guys are the judge. This was one of the first models I did with my airbrush once it had the new needle in, so hopefully the splatter and everything was a lot less and a lot better. Not perfect still, I'm still learning this, I'm still learning to be a better airbrusher, but I think I'm definitely getting there. So let's see if you think I screwed this up or if it really does pop off. I'm dying to see what you guys think, so leave a comment right now. Let me know if you think this is okay, or whether I should just throw this model in the bin. Because I understand it's not my best work by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it looks that bad. Considering this kit was cursed for me, I think I did okay. Oh, and I don't know if I've explained it yet because I've not finished editing this video, but I literally had this kit knocked off like a shelf 3 times, I think, by my cat. And then I stored it somewhere else that should have been safe from my cat. My cat still managed to find it and break it. The landing gear in this kit is shorter than it should be now because I literally had to cut part of the landing gear off in order to level them out after my cat had destroyed it that much. So my kit doesn't even stand the same height that it should do. It is what it is. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to buy another kit just for it. If anything, all it's taught me is that when I'm making a kit, if it's not a super strong sturdy kit, I need to store it way better than I was doing before with Archie, because Archie is sometimes actually the devil. But we do need to look at whether you should buy or fly away from this kit, and this is hard. There have been some before where I've been unsure whether or not to recommend you this kit based on purely the price of it. This kit is not expensive, or at least not for the size of it. Twin engine fighter, about the 16-17 euro mark is what I think is standard. I mean, hell, even up to 20 euros, not really that bad. But I do think this kit does need some additional updates. Does it fit perfectly well? No. At least in my experience it didn't, but that's older kits. Older kits don't always fit together super well. You're aware of that when you buy it. Saying that though, the MS406 that I built fit together like a glove. So why is this one so different? Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know whether I just really messed up and did a lot of things wrong, or whether I just read the instructions completely differently to how they are, because to my eye they were not super clear all the time. I definitely did something wrong with the landing gear, because that did not go the way it should have. But again, that's my issue with this kit. Updated, clearer instructions wouldn't be too hard to do. I mean, really, Hella? Would it cost you that much to just get someone to make a video tutorial? I mean, there's got to be content creators out there who are fans enough to do that for you. I know sometimes as content creators we're sometimes seen as doing tutorials in essence, but I really don't try and do that. I try and show you how I put a kit together, not how you should put a kit together. Because, for example, one thing I nearly always do in almost every kit is like just go and glue the wings together, and then sometimes realize that was completely the wrong thing to do, but most of the time it's fine. Whereas in the instructions it might be like part 7 or 8. With these ones, it was so unclear that I was just kind of scared of screwing it up. And I don't know why the plastic's so different in this one. All the vintage classics, all the Hello Music kit seems to have different plastic. I'm not sure why. And I never thought I would really care about the plastic, but it definitely feels different. It is a good kit. It's just not the easiest kit in the world. And hey, I still like the result I've got. That looks really nice on my shelf. That's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on building this beautiful Bréguet 693. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It does really help a girl out. If you want to go one step further and help make sure that I can afford these videos in the future, then drop me a membership of £1.99 or £4.99. £4.99 just gets a shout out at the end of each video. Ultimately, I just want to make sure that you guys are making the right decision for you. So if you can't afford a membership, that's okay. You're still going to be able to see these videos. Obviously, members just get some like extra community space and stuff, but don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, that's going to do it from me, guys. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll catch you next time. Bye! Thanks to all my channel members for help making these videos possible. Advanced Kits gets shouted out, so we've got John Alex Scale Modelling, we've also got Crazy Loca, and Explosive Water. Obviously I appreciate all of you for supporting, and well, anyone else just for watching. It really does make me smile. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I release new videos every Monday, and there's a recommended video here just for you. Why not check it out and see if you enjoyed that one too? Have fun modelling!